Since the very first intercollegiate game in 1869 between Rutgers and Princeton, the state of New Jersey has had a long tradition of college football. However, throughout this history, only once has a New Jersey university won a national championship in football. That school was Montclair State. Hi, I'm Larry Londino, and welcome to Carpe Diem. In 1970, Montclair State won the Knute Rockne Bowl, at the time a national championship game for what are now Division III teams. The team was coached by Clary Anderson, former high school coach, who took a 2-7 MSU team and in 2 years had them playing for a national title. Carpe Diem was pleased to round up a group of players and coaches from that championship season and find out what impact this experience had on their lives then and now. All right, let's start first talking about the regular season. Don, let's start with you. What kind of a team was this, first of all, the year before and then leading up to the game?
The NCAA had a rule that freshmen weren't eligible to compete on a varsity level. So these guys were freshmen, and the coaches, our coaching staff, wasn't there. They had been recruited by Hank Ferris, who did a great recruiting job bringing them in.
And we were happy for that rule because we had to play a little bit because they were pretty good.
Yeah. And we had some baggage to overcome that first year in 1969 because they had a couple of pretty bad seasons, and people looked at Montclair as an easy mark. So there were motivational things. And fortunately, we had a good skill level to work with.
How many of you were there the year before the championship playing?
We all were there the year before.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I was there the year before Clary Anderson. We had Coach Ferris, and then Clary came. And, we knew we were getting a high school coach, but we got a high school coach with I believe, a 209 and 23 record and 15 sectional titles. So we knew we had somebody special. And Coach Ferris really recruited a special class. The class under us, they used to beat us up in scrimmages. Honestly, they were good, they were talented, but Clary had a knack for knowing talent. And I remember he took two defensive players, one being Tony Valpone and Raleigh Casher, making All-American on offense in there, 2 years later. So Clary had a knack of where to put people and where to play them, and he was a tremendous difference. I know for me, we went from 3-6, 2-7, 8-2, 9-1.
Yeah.
So 9-1 was the season, the championship.
Right. The measure of how good those freshmen were was that they beat Rutgers at Rutgers.
That was at our place.
We were home
at your place. So. Yeah, that was the year before I got there when they were freshmen.
And how did they play them as Division I?
It was a freshman
level game. Yeah.
I think it was 14-7, as I remember, or 21-7.
No, we went 3 points.
3 points.
Yeah.
And it was, and I just remember just Rutgers, and we were flying, and we played. In fact, some of the kids that played with us in that game didn't play after that year. They didn't academically couldn't qualify or whatever, and we lost a few that were very good players.
Yeah, we lost some great kids off of that freshman team, and still were able to come in to next year's sophomores.
You played down at Rutgers? Or?
It was at our place, yeah.
It was our first game.
Right.
It was a Monday night, I think. We played on a Monday night under the lights.
Okay, let's go through the season in terms of the games. What were the highlights of the season up to the championship itself?
For me personally, I think beating Delaware State was our big game. Yeah. Delaware State had a running back who was the leading rusher in Division II football.
Steve Davis.
Steve Davis, and he played with the Pittsburgh Steelers for 5 seasons. He was their 4th running back, and we held him to 37 yards and 17 carries, and we ate this kid alive.
Yeah, he was 6'4", 2 1/4, and fast, talented.
And I thought Bridgeport was the game that really... Yeah, it was the one.
We shut them out. We beat them.
But we hadn't beaten Bridgeport in my 3 years there.
Right, and they had gone to the national championship game the year before.
And I thought when we turned that one over there, we just had a sight set on possibly getting a bowl bid.
Yeah. The only one I remember is the one we lost to Central up there, and I missed the bus ride home. Central Connecticut. I missed the bus ride home. I got left.
They burned him.
I got another fellow myself. He was hurt. He was a tight end. John Pello took a shot in the thigh and could barely walk, and I escorted him around campus, and we go to get the bus, and the bus left without us. Fortunately, Tony Valpone was still there, got us to a fraternity house, and in fact, I met a guy who's now the head football coach where I teach now in Westfield, Ed Tranchina, and it was like one of these bizarre. We took a bus, a train, you name it, to get home, and we finally got home much later, and John kept saying, my girlfriend's going to kill me. My girlfriend's going to kill me.
It wasn't the game you remember. It's what happened after the game.
But all I remember in the game is that one of our linemen got so excited near the end, he called a timeout, and I was the quarterback, ripped his head off because we needed it down the end because we ended up, I think, lost by 3 points, and we were on the 30-yard line going in.
14.
And we were going in for an opportunity to win the game, and we ran out of timeouts.
All right, let's talk about the game itself. Your recollections. Let's basically go around the table. Your recollections about the day. What kind of a day was it?
Well, it didn't matter. We were indoors. We played inside Atlantic City Convention Hall.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was circus went through. That's all I remember.
And it was on turf that was about that thick.
Yeah.
And every time a play went, they'd have people running out to put the flats back down again. It was a hard, fast track.
And have you ever played on?
No, nothing like that.
The field wasn't regulation length. Each end zone was only about 8 or 9 yards.
It is.
Well, the one at the stages
was 8.5 yards.
Where the Miss America contest is held, you could catch a pass inbounds and hit the stage. At the other end, the goalposts were right up against the balcony. So, being a kicker as well as a quarterback, I can remember those things, trying to, kick the ball into the bleachers and things like that.
I think we won the game Friday afternoon when Hampden-Syndey practiced first. And we sat in the stands watching them, and then they went and showered. And when they came out, Clary was a very literal guy. And he said to us, we're not going to have an official practice. I just want you to get down and get the feel for the field. So there we were, 40 kooks down the field. We were rolling around. We were doing somersaults. The linemen were all playing two-hand touch. And these kids from Hampden-Syndey, they came marching out with their jackets ties. They sat down, and they were looking at us like, what the heck are these guys doing? And finally, their coaches said, get out of here. Get out of here. Don't even watch
They were very disciplined.
Yeah, they were
very
typical military-type situation. And we were a bunch of kids having a good time. The play that stands out, though, was the extra point that we had scored first. We were winning 7-0. Right. And they scored and went for the 2-point conversion. And they threw a pass, and I think you and I have had this conversation. One of us hit the ball. We're not sure who. And the ball went straight up in the air. It had to go up 20 yards. When that ball came down, there were 22 football players waiting for it. Yeah. And everybody went up for it. There was this mad scramble. We fell out of the back of the end zone. Guys were going crazy. And 3 referees made 3 different calls. And it took them about 15 minutes to decide what had actually happened. And in finale, Alex Kaplanovich got credit for intercepting the ball, and we win the game 7-6. Yeah. But it was like the Little Rascals. It was the ball went up, and we were all just standing there waiting for it.
But there were ebbs and flows. Mike got a couple of stupendous punts where he got us out of trouble. Yeah. We got a good. We went for a field goal in the first period.
And I know I missed it.
And it went wide left.
No, it was straight down the middle, but it landed on the stage under the bar.
That's New Jersey scooped it right up.
It was a short field goal, and to this day, I said, I should never have missed it.
You couldn't have blamed the wind?
Yeah, and then in the second period, they set up for a field goal and tried to pass. They put a set of trips up on the left and tried to split us up, and we broke that up, so there was no score there. And then they had the ball in the second period right down on about the 10-yard line, and we got a first turnover that took that away. And that was one of Mike's good punts, I think. He got about a 60-yard punt out of that.
And just before the half, they went for a pass. I remember I missed an interception, but I was like, the ball out of the kid's
You put your hands on it, you mean?
Yeah. And then their touchdown was a weird play, too, because they were about 5 yards out. And we piled this kid up, and he was nowhere near the end zone. The referee throws his hands up. And it wasn't until we watched the film that we realized he had fumbled the ball. None of us saw the fumble. One of his linemen fell on the ball in the end zone and then jumped up and ran away before anybody realized it. We were arguing with the referee for an hour. They missed it. I mean, the guy was 3 yards out. Again, until we saw the film, we didn't realize he had fumbled the ball into the end zone.
Looking back on this almost 30 years later, what effect has it had on you as an individual and your development as a person? And what part of your education was it? How important a part was it of your education?
Clary taught me something in the 2 years I coached him. It's just a simple fact about never making excuses for yourself. Own up to yourself and, coach that way and play that way. And he coached that way. I mean, if you made a mistake, Clary didn't mind you kind of admitting it and kind of move from there. It really was a very special day. I don't know if I appreciated it as much then or as I did as the years kind of grow. And, we were a team to win a bowl game, and it's exciting. And it's kind of a bond that we'll always have.
What John said is absolutely true. He knew his talent. He told me one time, this was in that Stroudsburg game, first game, I'm a sophomore, I'm the 4th or 5th string quarterback. He puts me at the end of the first half, he says, throw a ball so only our man can catch it. And
advice.
And little things like that he said that always have stuck in my mind. And I think the one thing that I've learned is to recognize talent, to know when to use a kid at a certain situation. Because he'd pull a kid off the bench who hadn't played at all and put him in a game, and the kid was successful.
His attitude was he didn't want to look down the sideline and see one of his best players standing there when somebody on the field wasn't quite as good just because they played a different position. And that's been my philosophy. And I push that with my assistant coaches all the time. I want the best 11 kids available on the field. I don't want to look down the sideline and see a great player watching a game, especially if we're losing.
The thing that really impacted me the most were the guys. I came here, and you guys will attest, I had a rod up my back, and I was shaved head. Well, I've gone back to that now, but unemotional, not pretty unreachable as far as emotion goes. And I won't go so far as to say these guys were flower children, but they were the closest thing to it without a watering can in their
For a Marine.
And what they gave me was the ability to let my emotions go, and to when the first time one of these guys tried to hug me, I'm thinking, oh man, and it bothered me, but they really opened me up and made me more of a human, and that's something I love every one of them for.
I also had the opportunity to talk with offensive line coach Tim Sullivan, running back Tony Valpone, linebacker Alex Kaplanovich, defensive end Mike Van Zyl, and center Ernest Jones. Here's what they had to say. Okay, I'd like to begin talking about the regular season, and let's kind of bounce around. Actually, we can start with Tim, about your recollections of what were some of the lowlights and highlights of the season, this championship season.
Well, the highlight was definitely the Newt Rockne Bowl game, being victorious in that. And the low light was the idea that the season was going to end.
Talk a little about the recruiting. I mean, most people think in terms of recruiting that it's multi-$1,000s where coaches are flying all over the country. What was then Division II, now Division III. What is the recruiting like?
Well, again, it was making a phone call and a little personality. We just didn't have any money to offer. I know Rich and Mike and the boys were looking for the big payoff, but it just wasn't there in those days.
We did get exactly.
The payoff was an admission to a good university, at that time a college, Montclair State, and being part of a winning tradition was what we would try to sell. There was some good history here, but the previous seasons to these fellows coming aboard were not that successful at Montclair. So they had the opportunity of pitching together and making it happen, which they did.
How about the regular season games? Some recollections that you have of what games, any particular games that were relevant for any of you?
I think the one that stands in my mind, probably some of your minds too, is the last game, the Glassboro game that we had to win.
Yeah.
I think that whole week building up to that game, the coaching staff was light with us, but they made us realize, like, hey, this is the big time, fellas. If you guys win this game, we've got a real good chance. We weren't sure. It wasn't a shoo-in. We weren't sure, but we had to win this game, and we had to win big. And the practice, I think it was the Friday before, it was raining. And we wound up going to practice up off of Upper Mountain Road, and a place where we all used to go snowboarding and not snowboarding, sledding and tobogganing, during the winter. But we went out there. It was raining. We got to the field. It seemed to stop raining all of a sudden, and the practice went great. And it was kind of like a roll-in, a premonition of what was going to happen the next day. And we got down to Glassboro. We really did the job. So we really handled it well.
At that point, winning that game was just winning the conference, the state college conference. That didn't guarantee that you were going to go to the bowl game.
But we had to win that one in order to be considered.
Considered for it. Yeah, there were a couple other teams that
we scored the first 3 times we had the ball.
Yeah. Right. There were a couple other teams being considered also, when we knew that if we went out, we did it big. We'd not only win our conference, which was almost like we hadn't lost to anybody in our conference all season. The conference wasn't really on the line there. It was a pride thing. But I think the underlining factor there was, let's win this game, let's win it big, and let's stay healthy through the whole game.
It seemed to me that throughout the season, and in fact all 3 years that we played there, the Connecticut teams always seemed to give us the most type of concern or problems. Between Bridgeport University had a football program at the time. Central Connecticut, with their option play, was always a big concern to us. And we played 3 teams, Southern Connecticut. We played 3 teams out of Connecticut, and they seemed to be the most concerning of the ones. We always had the Pennsylvania teams early in the season, and we had pretty good success with them.
Definitely did. The Connecticut teams were big teams. I remember they were not only big squads, but physically they were big. And it was kind of intimidating at first, but once the game got rolling, we had some great athletes. They came from all over the state.
One of the things, Larry, with the offensive line was, and Rich was a leader of this, is we did something that was a little innovative at the time of calling the blocking on the line. And the fellows would actually go up and they had this red and blue call or over and under or things. And they were telling one another what they were going to do on the line as far as blocking. And the other team would think they were kidding. And son of a gun, they would come out and they would do it, and then they would give them a phony call. But it was Richie was one of the leaders in making those calls and just made it happen.
I remember a few times guys would get the signals mixed up, and
the other team was right.
One guy would even say, we'd say, take him out for me, take him out for me. And then the guy would be surprised when you would go over and take him out just as he said. He would think you were giving a false call or something, but it was almost comical, some of the things that were happening in that middle of the line there.
I remember as a running back, one of the offensive guards, matter of fact, both of them, I think it was John Bellavia on the left and Al Avignon on the right, depending upon where their man was playing, when they got down into their stance, they would either cross their hands one way or the other before they went down on the ground, and that would tell the running backs, Glenn Warchauser and myself, which way they were going to block their man. And it was, like Tim said, it was innovative. It was stuff that we put together as a team, the coaches put together just to help us. And it all seemed to just come together for us.
What kind of support did you get from the student body as far as your activities, sports activities?
Well, I had never played a night football game prior to coming to Montclair State. And, once I got here, I never played in the afternoon again unless we were on the road. The support that we got from the faculty and the student body here at Montclair, once we started winning some games, it just grew and grew. And we were also very lucky. Most of us came from great families, and our families were wherever we were playing. And as a result, that just made the excitement of the games even more outstanding for us as players, because when we came down out of our locker room, which was across the way from the home stands, and we went down those steps at night, and you looked over there, the place was packed. And there wasn't a Saturday night that I can remember it not being packed.
When did you all find out about the bid? Or was it a foregone conclusion you were getting the bid, or how did you each find out about the fact that you were going to be going to this bowl game?
In the locker room, finding out the few of us that were there, and then having to go out and find everybody on campus and let them know there's practice this afternoon. Let's get down to the gym. We made it. We're going to the bowl game.
What happened there was an NCAA decision, and there was a committee that had to meet, and they did have that meeting on Monday, and our athletic director, Bill Diagotti, at the time, was a great politician. And Bill was lobbying for us, and we did get the votes that enabled us to play in that game, and we had high hopes, but it was not a sure thing.
Take me through the game, more or less chronologically, about what happened in individual plays leading up to the final 7-6 victory.
We scored, and it was an inside play. I know I feel good about that. It was an inside play.
Over you and Al, sure was.
Yes, it came right up the middle, and I think we scored on third down.
I knew we were battling our way inside the 10.
Right,
we're getting a few yards here and there.
It was a long drive.
And it was like the third down, and we said, man, if we don't get it on this play, we're going to have to try to kick a field goal from here. And I said, we worked too hard to do it. And play was called. I guess Clary sent the play into Bobby Brewster. The play was called, and it was just like, it was like a still. All of a sudden, it was like the ball was snapped. And I don't want to say it was slow motion, but you could feel everything you were doing. You could feel your breathing. You could feel yourself hitting. You could feel yourself pushing. You could feel the pile start to slide over the line. And then when the referee just threw his hands up in the air, it was like, such a relief just to know that you were in there with the ball.
We shut their running game down, and John Brunelli, who was out here before, he had 3 interceptions during the game, which, he really, and in fact, I think Clary gave him the game ball after the game, and he picked, they were thrown to the flat, and John had this great knack of covering the short flat.
Does anybody have any recollections about what Clary Anderson told you at halftime in that game?
But Clary just came out and said, hey, you guys are doing a great job out there. You're playing your hearts out. He says, we just need to do the exact same thing in the second half. Our coaching staff could always make good adjustments on the fly. That's one thing.
Business. Yeah. At halftime it was usually business. They went about, making the corrections offensively and defensively throughout the season, and they didn't change a stroke for the bowl game.
I'd like to wrap up by kind of going around the table and getting a sense of, first of all, what you're doing now, and to what extent you think what you are today, what did this experience, being here at Montclair State, playing on that team, what effect it's had on you overall, Rich?
In the 3 years that we played as a team, we never lost an opening game. We never lost a game at home, and we never lost our last game, including the bowl game, which means we were prepared. We had endurance that lasts through a whole season, despite injuries, and we were also focused, and we had a lot of pride that we would not lose at our home stand.
We weren't hippies, but we were free-spirited. We were very free-spirited, but we just enjoyed one another. We enjoyed playing with one another. We all had a common goal, and that was to be successful.
Some of the things I remember most of all is the quality of the people that I played with. I played with a lot of fellas from a lot of different parts of the state, most of them from the North Jersey area. I was from the South Jersey at that point in time. But the camaraderie that we all had, I think that's one thing that sits in my mind. And I think the coaching staff really brought that out in us.
We played together, and, it was just a great experience. And you talk to kids about that today, and, there's so many outside interests for kids today. And if you could just get them to play together, and you look back at what we did 30 years ago, just by sticking together and playing together, it was a tremendous experience.
This group made it all possible. It made the coaching a pleasure. You could actually go out there and talk to people who had a good football IQ, and winning meant something to them. And here we are 30 years later, and we've had some great athletes at Montclair. We've had some outstanding coaching staffs here at Montclair, and yet nobody has come close to meeting what these fellows did.
The 1999 Montclair State football team has a connection to the 1970 team. Pete Contaldi, when he was the coach at Midland Park High School, coached this year's MSU offensive team captain, John Yessis. We had an opportunity to talk with John recently at Sprague Field as he prepared for the upcoming season.
Brian Cohen reporting for Carpe Diem. Joining me right now is 1999 MSU offensive captain John Yessis, who was coached by 1970 defensive captain Pete Cataldi. John, thank you for joining us.
Thanks. How you doing?
John, how did you become the offensive team captain?
Well, basically I was voted on by my peers based on leadership, performance on the field, and basically social interaction off the field with the other players.
Where did you learn this leadership?
Throughout sports, since I was maybe 8 years old. Played baseball, football, basketball, wrestling, all of that. And I kind of learned from other people to lead by example. Sort of like an old school type of deal. Not so much flashiness or anything like that. Just be hardworking and see how others react.
How did Pete Cataldi influence you as a leader?
Well, me and him, or he and I, fit together quite well because he was a blue-collar type of athlete as well, who basically took his lumps and worked hard and tried to get ahead as best he could by using whatever God gave him, and took that to its fullest extent.
Can you tell me what it was like to play for Pete Cataldi?
He was the type of guy who, whether you won or lost, he was still always pretty agreeable. I mean, obviously no one takes losing well, but he knew what it took to be a winner in life, not so much as on the field. He taught you how to live. He indirectly taught you how to live your life, self-discipline, things of that nature.
Did he influence your decision to play football here at Montclair?
Directly, no. We never talked about it, but I was aware that he went here. My family was interested in the school. I visited. I liked it. I had been here for camps when I was younger, and I enjoyed the atmosphere, location, everything.
Did he ever talk about his old playing days at Montclair State?
I believe after I decided to come here and I had seen him during my freshman year here, we exchanged a few stories of football and how things are run here and the attitude and the way we're supported by the community.
What exactly does the 1999 team know about the 1970 team?
As of late, a little more than you would think. This team and last year's team both had aspirations of achieving their level of performance, like going to the NCAA finals, things of that nature. This team really feels that's their goal.
What will it take for the 1999 team to accomplish the feat that the 1970 team did?
Obviously, number one is everyone has to be dedicated from the last day of last season up until the first day of next season. It's funny, we say that next season starts in January. It doesn't even start in January. It starts in December of the year before, where most of the guys start to work out. They start to get their schoolwork in order. Everything has to be in place for a team to go that far, academically and physically.
One last question, John. What are the odds of the 1999 team repeating what happened in 1970?
Well, mathematically, if you look at it, there's well over, I believe it's well over 200 schools vying for that kind of achievement. But last year we finished the season probably ranked in the top 10 in the nation, maybe top 15. And this year, of course, since we're looking to improve on last year as best we can, it seems within our reach. But no one's making any bold predictions for fear of taking anyone's focus off the big picture, and that's just winning every game as they come, one at a time.
John, thank you for joining us. Hopefully in 30 years from now, they'll be doing a special about your teams.
I hope so. Thank you.
For Carpe Diem, I'm Brian Cohen.
Whether the 1999 team is able to bring another national championship to MSU remains to be seen. However, I was struck by the instant camaraderie which ignited when the members of the 1970 team gathered for this reminiscence. It was fascinating for me to see the years melt away as this group of accomplished adults reflected on the importance of their early success and the environment which made it possible for them to excel beyond college. The group is planning a 30th reunion next year to bring together the whole team for the first time in 3 decades. We hope you enjoyed our reflection on MSU's athletic past. And if you'd like more information about today's program or any other Carpe Diem, you can write us at Carpe Diem, care of the Dumont Television Center, Montclair State University, Upper Montclair, 07043, or call us at 973-655-5158. I'm Larry Landino for Carpe Diem.